Hey everybody, Mackie back here with another fantasy football fun installment for everybody. I'm going to call this one my Week 7 Lessons Learned. I'm actually sitting here watching the Falcons-Giants thing. Not really going to call it a game because in the third quarter it's 10-3, and this game is just awful to watch. Uh, Atlanta's offense looks like crap. Uh, we know we know that the Giants' offense sucks. They have 3 points. They have a quarterback who can't throw. Um, and everybody knows Barkley's getting the ball in short yardage situations. They just got stuffed on 3rd and 1 from the 1. They got stuffed on 4th and goal from the 1. It just, like, you're not good. And it's tough to watch this game. But for fantasy football purposes, we're going to watch it. So I might react to something that's happening during the game while we're recording this, but you know, que sera, sera. Look at that. That's a pass. Somebody who's not fantasy relevant. Nobody likes you, J.J. Hardy. You're useless to everybody. If you started J.J. Hardy this week, you are in a 2019 league and somehow had him on your team. So week 7 is pretty much in the books here, and you know it's time for our lessons learned installment. Um, to see who our breakout stars were this week, people who are legitimate must-adds or valuable commodities to trade for if you can get them cheap. Um, some of our fool's gold. These might be people who had a big performance, but trust me, these guys suck. They're absolutely no good. They are not worth your time in fantasy football. Um, some of these players that we're going to highlight are what I call pump the brakes players. They're basically, hey, it's not as bad as what happened this week. You might be frustrated over what they've done the last couple weeks, but don't worry, these guys are going to be here for you when you need them. And then the last one is the panic button players. These are ones that you should absolutely freak out if these guys are on your roster. Um, you know, these are guys you don't want on your team. They are ticking time bombs waiting to explode and lose you a fantasy championship. It's pretty much plain and simple what these guys are. Week 7's brought us some significant injuries so far. We've had running backs go out, Sonny Michel, LaShawn McCoy. And Matt Breida also went out. So that's 3 starting running backs. Like boom, 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 all went down this week. So if you had those guys started, I believe Sonny Michel would have gotten you like 3, maybe 4 points. McCoy would have gotten you a 0, and Breida would have gotten you a -1. So really, really tough. I feel like that was a fumble, but it looked like Julio Jones just fumbled that ball. 3:59 left in the third. Looked like a fumble. Looked like he had it. He loaf of breaded that thing. That's absolutely a fumble. They're gonna call that a fumble. They should. But they blew it dead, so they might not be able to. So, Week 7 also brought us some stuff like a possible Le'Veon Bell return if you have him on your roster. Maybe a trade. Understand that the NFL trade deadline is the 30th of October, which means we only have 8 days left before any possible trades in the NFL are done. And just today, Amari Cooper got dealt to the Dallas Cowboys. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I reported it the second I saw it drop was Amari Cooper was traded to Dallas. Breaking news, breaking news. And then I followed it with more breaking news that Amari Cooper still sucks. Don't be fooled. Carlos Hyde got traded this past week, and that was probably the biggest explosion of fantasy football news because of just how many people it affected. So we'll kind of go through what that means, and that's the key in fantasy football, is to understand what that means to you, your team, and your league, and where it may reshuffle the balance of power. You could be 5-1, but if that guy that was 2-3, or I'm sorry, like 2-4 or 3-4, after this week, uh, the tides may have turned. This guy could go on a 7-week winning streak, and it won't matter what you were. He might kick your ass now if he was on the right side of these and you weren't. Um, I can't tell you how many times I was able to get a late season ad, or just someone I'd hung on to all season that just turned into an end up superstar at the end of the season. And in fantasy football, that's what it is. It's not really like a cumulative, well, my guy was ranked, number 4 on the season. Yeah, well, was he ranked number 1 the first 10 weeks and then scored 3 points, weeks 11, 12, and 13, and you lost in fantasy that year? It's a matter of who performs the last 6 weeks of the season. That's what wins you a championship, the last 6 weeks. Not the first 6, not the middle 6, but the last 6 weeks of the NFL season win you a fantasy football championship. So it's important to have the guys who are going to perform at the end of the season. So, without further ado, on to our main event. Let's go through who our breakout stars are for this week. So, breakout stars. Those of you who know me, who follow me, you'll know that my first breakout star is absolutely Nick Chubb. Oh, wait, ruling on the field. That is a turnover for Julio Jones owners, so we'll call that a -2. Boop, 2. I'm playing against Julio Jones this week. Fuck you, Eli. Um, so that's a fumble. I called it, a few minutes ago before they even challenged it, that was a fumble. You should look at that. He caught it. He fumbled it. He carried that shit like a loaf of bread. Make my kids run a lap or do 10 push-ups for that shit if they fumble my football. Nick Chubb, breakout star. I love Nick Chubb. Kind of stalled, but I got there. So he was the biggest beneficiary of the Carlos Hyde trade. I've been hoping on him for weeks that he was going to do something, and I drafted him in, I think it was the last round of my draft. So here's my draft board, and then you'll be able to trace Mackey all the way down to the 14th round, where I decided I was going to draft Nick Chubb. Now, I also, way up top, decided to draft Carlos Hyde over here in like the 6th round because he was available. And I thought Hyde was going to be decent. I thought he was going to lose his job. That's why I drafted Chubb in the 14th round, and I hung on to him. And I really thought Chubb was starting to win the job. He had much better yards per carry. He was averaging 10.8 per carry. This Sunday he was 4.4, but it's still a full yard better than what Hyde was averaging with the Browns offense. So it's definitely a step up for them. He had 2 goal-to-go opportunities that Baker Mayfield honestly screwed him on one by trying to do a QB sneak from the one. Just give it to the hammer. Let him run it in. Get us that fantasy touchdown, Baker. Burp. Don't be selfish. We don't need that shit. And the other one was Landry. I thought he was down at the goal line, and it would have been like a first and goal from the one. And that absolutely could have been a Nick Chubb touchdown, too, if they had touched Landry. So it looks like he's going to have opportunities. He's going to score touchdowns. And he's absolutely the bell cow back. If you have a league that Nick Chubb's available, number one, your league is stupid because nobody picked him up. And if you follow me and you haven't picked up Nick Chubb and he was available, then obviously you don't listen well. Pick that motherfucker up if you can. He should be owned in 100% of leagues. And I think he is he's a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 for the rest of the season. So if you're going to ask questions to me during the week, should I start Nick Chubb in my flex? I'm just going to slap you and say, yes, dumbass, start him. He's a top 10 fantasy running back for the remainder of the season. Stamp it, put it on the board. Next is Marlon Mack. Oof, 31 points in fantasy last week for this week for standard scoring. So PBR, he probably scored a little bit more. Um, this guy's a real deal. He's over 100 yards 2 straight weeks. I love this kid. The only person that I told people to start him over, I told people to start Chubb over Marlon Mack. I stand by that. I understand it didn't work out, but you don't know. You don't expect people to score 31 points. It didn't seem like he was going to get the ball that much, but somehow the receivers of the Colts just kept getting tackled at the 2, and he was the beneficiary of it. And they just ran the ball in. He hit the goal line. Marlon Mack even outscored Todd Gurley this week. So if you tell me, oh, Matt told me to start Nick Chubb and I had Marlon Mack on the bench, what the hell? You didn't think he was going to outscore Todd Gurley either. Uh, and honestly, it was a toss-up. If I had both of those guys on my roster, I'd have probably found a way to start them both, especially knowing that if you have both of those players on your team, that you probably don't have two more options that are better than both of them. Um, so I really think that he's definitely a must start going forward. If you do have both of them, I'd love to know what your running back situation is, so we can kind of work out on a week to week basis what would be the best start. But you might have like a solid running back you might have to sit for the remainder of the year if you have that awful problem of having Marlon Mack and Nick Chubb. My last one is Kerryon Johnson, whom I had on my team up until this past week. Um, Listen, I made a move. I thought it was for the better uh, of my team as a whole because I needed one player and I had too many. So I traded two good players to a really bad team who isn't going to come back to haunt me uh, because they were 0-6 at the time of our trade. And it worked out well for him. It looks like he's going to get his first win of the season this week. And um, Kerryon Johnson's a great start. I have Golden Tate on my team, so I'm not going to start two Detroit Lions on my roster. I'm that guy that will not start multiple players from the same team. I traded Tyreek Hill when I got uh, Travis Kelce because I don't want to rely on one passing attack. I need to know that if one of my superstars has a bad week, it's not going to affect three of my superstars all at once. The only time I like having two on the same is I like having a quarterback with my wide receiver. I actually just got rid of that situation this week, though. I had Jared Goff for the whole season, and I traded him. Ended up getting Cam Newton in exchange. I just think Cam's a better play as much as I don't have that wide receiver quarterback combo anymore. I just feel like he's a better play going forward for the remainder of the season. Um, but Kerryon Johnson, he had two 100-yard games. He's the first Detroit Lion since Barry Sanders to have two 100-yard games in a 4-week span. Just saying, he's a real deal. He's going to be good. The line's blocking well for him. He's reducing Matt Stafford's need to pass 96 times a game, which is good for Stafford. It's good for the offense. It'll open up play action, and you'll see bigger plays down the field. It'll help your other players like Marvin Jones Jr., Golden Tate, um, and even Galladay, who I don't really like as a player. Um, I just don't think there's enough targets to go around for him anymore. But he's going to make a big play every now and then. It's going to be kind of cool to have him. Some weeks, if you do decide you're going to take that risk and start Galladay as like a fill-in flex when you got guys on bye. Our next one is Fool's Gold. These are people who, listen, they had a good week, okay? They may have had a good couple weeks, but this is me telling you, don't fall for it. Don't waste a valuable late season waiver claim on these absolute garbage players and wreck your season. Tyrell Williams, guy's a boomer bust receiver. He's scored a touchdown in the last 2 weeks. He scored over 20 points 2 weeks ago, and he scored over 10 this week. Tyrell Williams has not caught more than 4 passes in a single week all season. He caught 4 once and then basically 3 catches a week. This guy's 3 catches, 45 yards, and if he can get a touchdown, he ends up with 100 yards because he's the one who catches that 65-yard bomb that happens 4 times a season. He's not worth starting. He will lose you your fantasy league this year if you start him. Don't pick him up. Michael Roberts. He is the mid-season Will Disley. He is the tight end that had a good game, who caught 2 really short touchdowns, and all of you who are having tight end problems late in the season may go and fawn over him. I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. He's not going to be any good. These may be the only points he scores all season. He had, by catching 3 balls for 2 touchdowns this past week, he has tripled his largest catch output. He has 4 catches on the season. 3 were in this game. 1 was 4 weeks ago. He is not a viable tight end option. Please don't just say, ooh, he did good, he's a tight end, let's try it. Because I tell you what, if you're looking for a prediction from the Zen Master, Michael Roberts will score you the same amount of points if you pick him up and start him as if you left him on the waiver wire. 0. He's going to score 0 points. Don't go near him. And if this motherfucker catches a ball for 10 yards and scores 1 point for you, don't tweet me back and go, oh, Maggie, he scored 1 point. Don't be stupid. You know, if he don't score you at least 7 or 8, he was an absolute bust, and he's never going to score that again. The next one is kind of near and dear to my heart as far as fool's gold. Derrick Henry. Listen, a whole bunch of people that I know just dropped him this past week. And then there was always that guy who was dumb enough to just go and pick him up. Oh, I'm going to pick up Derrick Henry. And then you sit him on your bench, and then he scores 12 points this week. Understand that he had 12 carries for 33 yards this week. That is friggin' awful. That's less than 3 yards a carry. And that is going to get you nowhere in the NFL. It's not getting you the ball when you need it. You're not going to be able to salt a game away. Not to mention that you're in a bad team that's always losing. He got in the end zone. That's it. That's the only reason he was mildly relevant for a week. Don't be fooled and say, well, he got 12 points last week, so now's the time to start him. I don't care if ESPN is stupid enough to project him over 10 points. Don't do it. If you have Derrick Henry and you're thinking about starting him, just drop him so you don't have to make that thought anymore. Let him be someone else's problem. In fact, if you have Derrick Henry, I implore you to trade or drop him so someone else picks him up. That way, someone else will be stupid enough to start him, get 3 points, maybe even your opponent. And hey, at that point, I'm helping you out. You traded away someone who scored your opponent 3 points. And then you win your matchup because he was dumb and you weren't. Think about it. Now on to our pump the brakes, it's not that bad section. These are guys who you might be worried about, but I'm gonna make you feel good and happy about it, so you don't have to worry. Now, being a Pats fan, Sony Michel is the first one on this list. Listen, Michel ran great on Sunday when he had the ball. He was fantastic. He's dynamic. He looks like the second coming of Curtis Martin out there when he's running between the tackles. It's really nice to see. The good news is we found out today that his knee injury is not serious. He may miss 2 or 3 weeks, but more than likely if you drafted Sony Michel or if you picked him up off the wire, he was not a top pick for you. He is not who's been carrying you on this fantasy season. Now, I'm not saying he's not been helpful. He hasn't been able to help you win your matchup by 30 points every week, but you can survive without him. You can pretend he's on bye for 3 weeks. I think in 3 weeks he comes back. He'll be just as good as he was before. He'll lead this rushing attack. He's going to score touchdowns, and when you need him at the end to win the championship, he's going to be there. So don't worry on Sony Michel. Stash him away on your IR for now, and just roll with it. Zeke Elliott. Guy scored 3 points this week. I made fun of someone who traded Zeke away because he ended up getting like David Johnson in return. And I said, Zeke is never going to only score you 6 points. I was wrong. Zeke scored 3 points. But I'm going to tell you not to worry. I said I didn't love Zeke Elliott this week. I thought he was going to score like 7 or 8, but he scored 3. Uh, Washington is very good against the run. They stacked 8 in the box all day and said, "You're not going to run off us. You pass." And then Dak did pass, but then their kicker couldn't kick a field goal to tie the game, so they lost. Overall, the Dallas offense was pretty stagnant, but passing was the key in that game, and that's what they went out and did the majority of the plays. So, Zeke really wasn't in the game plan, and when he got the ball, he just got stuffed because they were willing to give up the pass to defend the run, and it was just one bad week for Zeke. He'll be fine. Joe Mixon. I thought Mixon ran really well last night, but unfortunately, Andy Dalton sucks when the lights are on, and he just stalled that offense over and over and over. Even on a screen pass to Mixon, he was throwing it behind him so he'd get smoke and lose 4 yards, really stunting any type of fantasy value that he did have. So, with that said, Joe Mixon's going to be fine. He's going to score you points when it matters, as long as they don't have a primetime game. He'll make my hate list if I see Cincinnati on a nighttime schedule going forward. Whoa. That's a good one. But as long as it's a day game, you're good to go roll with Mixon. Um, Now, our time to hit the panic button section. Now, this is basically if you got these guys, you don't want these guys. Takavecchio is going to go for a 50-yard field goal. My boy needs these 5 fantasy points right here. It'll give him a glimmer of hope. That looks good. That looks good. That's money. It's +5 in my league, 50-yard field goal. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. We got fantasy championships being decided with these seedings. Nobody wants to lose. Got a kicker going against Ito Smith, and Ito Smith sucks balls. So there's a chance his kicker outscores it. A couple more field goals, and he's got a real shot. But nonetheless, first person to panic on the aforementioned David Johnson. I am so worried about David Johnson because this offense is so historically bad. Um, it turns Johnson into a fantasy running back that can just absolutely disappear at any time. If he's gonna have good weeks. He's gonna have some really bad weeks, and unfortunately, that's what can lose you a fantasy championship. One bad matchup in the middle of a 3-week playoffs, you lose just like that. Because if you have David Johnson, chances are you use the first round draft pick on it, or at worst, you use the second round draft pick on him. Which means he's one of your top 2 players you rely on scoring, and at best he's going to score you 14 or 15 points when they do win, and at worst he's going to score you like 5 or 6. And you can't have a 5 or 6 from one of your top players. Most people in my league have someone like Kareem Hunt, Todd Gurley, James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, Christian McCaffrey, like people who are going to get you that 15 points a minimal, but could go off for 30. David Johnson's not that guy anymore. If he has value with people amongst your league, trade David Johnson. Get something good in return. Try and package David Johnson, a wide receiver, for a better running back. But do something now. Hell, you could probably take David Johnson in most leagues and trade him to an owner who picked up Nick Chubb before you, and you can get Nick Chubb or Marlon Mack for David Johnson, and that would be a huge coup. So think about it. LaShawn McCoy. This guy has mailing it in, packing it in, written all over him. Listen, he doesn't want to play anymore this year. He doesn't like being a Buffalo Bill. We'll be honest. The team is goddamn awful this year, and there's no room for him to run. They know he's the best player on the field. He keeps getting hurt over and over, and it's going to be impossible to win a championship with this guy who will absolutely ghost on you at any moment. If you have LaShawn McCoy, and again, if he has value in the league, try going after some of these people who I've identified as breakout stars. Marlon Mack, Nick Chubb, Kerryon Johnson. If you can trade LaShawn McCoy for one of those 3 guys, use his name recognition in your league to get one of these upcoming stars that'll win you a championship. Lastly is Leonard Fournette. Poor Leonard Fournette. With the Carlos Hyde trade, he is the one who is kicked in the nuts the most. Obviously, besides TJ Yeldon, who becomes an absolute afterthought. Um, Leonard Fournette is hurt. He's probably not coming back till at least week 10. The Jags have a bye week 9. And if he does come back week 10, they're going to ease him back in because Carlos Hyde's there to lighten the load. Jacksonville doesn't care about your fantasy points. They care about winning football games and keeping their young star healthy. They're gonna timeshare until he's like, hey, I'm your bell cow, and you don't need Carlos Hyde. But if Carlos Hyde comes out there and rushes for 4.5, 5 yards a carry behind that good offensive line, you can guarantee a friggin' timeshare the rest of the season just to keep Fournette healthy. And that's if he's healthy enough to do it. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to follow me. Um, Subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more content like this. And um, yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Let's all hope that the Giants lose because nobody likes the Giants. Um, the Falcons don't have a 28-3 lead, so that's good. They shouldn't be able to blow it. And other than that, happy fantasy football, peeps.